Let's kick it off. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by Ash and Ian Irving of The Athletic. So, Ian, I'm going to let you tell us a bit more about your roles, but, I know you best from the Talk of the Devils podcast, the Manchester United podcast. For me, the best podcast out there for Manchester United in terms of coverage, in terms of balanced views, and, it's pretty clear that you're all United supporters, so you do want the best for the club. So, when we started this podcast 18 months ago, I think you guys were very much not the blueprint in terms of where we want to get to, but in terms of that top level of, the elite, if you like. So you were that Fergie Manchester United team, if you want to say, for us. And for me personally, hosting the podcast, obviously you're the host of the podcast for Talk of the Devils. I really started listening to you closely and, almost in a way try to model some of your hosting skills. So it really is an honour to have you on, Ian. So thank you for coming on. First of all.
That's brilliant. Yes, the nicest introduction I think I've ever had. Yeah, I mean, we've done the show now the lads have done it a little bit longer than me, but the show's been going for about 5 years. Where Manchester United are concerned, conversation will follow, good, bad and indifferent. Fortunately, at the minute, it's a bit more good than it's been.
Yeah.
It's certainly a much easier task, shall we say, or initially at least a much easier task when Manchester United are winning, to record the shows. I think no matter the circumstance, there's conversation. Even in the good, you can still pick holes, and in the bad, you can still find positives and try and find out the core of it all. Talk of the Devils, in my head at least, we try and pride ourselves on not telling you what to think, but more bringing you the insight that we have as to what is happening at any given moment, what we've seen, what we've heard, what the people we can speak to have told us in terms of the club's decision-making or, whatever. And just trying to keep a level head with it all. I mean, it can be really difficult, can't it, to keep across everything.
Yeah.
We try and cover as much as we can. As a host, I try and incorporate as much of the conversation that you guys would have together on the show or otherwise, ask the questions that people want asking, try and find the answers between us that we can. And there's obviously, lots of different Manchester United coverage out there, but we're fortunate to be in a position where we do attend games regularly, we do speak to people, we do interview people and go to press conferences and everything else. So it's just about trying to tell people what we know really and what we've heard.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And we'll come on to kind of like what you do these days outside the pod, but I just wanted to hear a little bit about your background. So where did you grow up? Tell us about how you got into Manchester United, etc.
My dad, born in Manchester, grew up in Oldham on the outskirts of Manchester. My dad is a very passionate Manchester United fan, probably more so than me, to be fair. He's been a season ticket holder for a very long time, has been watching United since the 1950s.
Wow.
And, I didn't have a choice, to be honest. I was taken to games before I remember going. If you ask me what my first match was, I have absolutely no idea. My dad
What's
had
the
a
first
season
one you
ticket.
remembered?
I remember there's a season, sort of 93, 94, where I begin to remember being at games.
Good times.
Yeah, but usually like for negative reasons.
Oh, really?
One of the biggest memories I've got is not the game, but United beat City 5-0, November 94, I think I'm right in saying. Kanchelskis got a hat-trick. And I just have a very vivid memory of a guy sat on a bin on the concourse of the stadium, banging it, going 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And then the entire sort of concourse of people heading out of the stadium, all shouting 5-0 in unison.
Wow.
But around that sort of time, I remember them getting beat off Fenerbahce in the Champions League, and people being absolutely devastated about it because it was the first home defeat they'd ever had in the European Cup.
Yep.
And I remember Stan Collymore scoring for Nottingham Forest, weirdly. Around the same sort of time where I don't know the record to regurgitate right now, but they'd not conceded all season at home or something like that. They'd not conceded for 6 months at home. Something crazy.
Also, it was like our first defeat at Old Trafford for ages around that time. We were undefeated for ages, I remember.
Just remember it sticking out at the time,
it was a good goal as well to win it. Yeah.
I went to the 94 semi-final, which was United and Oldham,
Wow.
Like I say, I grew up in Oldham, so that was, obviously that sticks in my head because half my mates were in the red end and the other half of my mates were in the blue end.
Nice.
So, I remember going to that. But, I have no idea what my first game was. My dad, would take me when I was tiny. I used to go in on his shoulders and stand in front of him in the seat. I was still doing it when I was nearly out of primary school. I probably could have carried him in by the time we stopped doing it and I got my own ticket. But, we've been all over the place watching them. And before I did this job, that was watching football. Anything to do with football was my dad, basically. So it's his fault.
Do you play football?
I did, yeah. I mean, our weekends would be me play Saturday morning, go and watch United Saturday afternoon, because in those days they would play more often than not then.
Yeah.
Sunday morning was my dad's team. Sunday afternoon was me again. So I was an only child. My mum spent a weekend in the wellies at the side of football pitches. So that was my upbringing, basically.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, do you still, have you passed that stage of pinching yourself that you're now, at Old Trafford in the media box or, near the touchline?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
have. And I miss it. I miss being a fan sometimes.
Yeah.
I miss going for a pint with my dad before the game. I miss going for the celebratory one that you'd not planned after the game when you have a great win or, you're getting excited about something. I miss elements of travelling to watch the games. We were talking about this on one of the podcasts recently where, as a fan, you go to an away game, people think that the match is everything. It's not. It's like 5% of the trip, basically.
Yeah, it really is like that.
Spending time with your mates and all that.
Well,
I'm sure you guys do
Bilbao's
it,
the best example of that because me, Ash, and 3 of our other friends, we all went to Bilbao. Obviously, result awful, but trip probably
Game
one of the best
awful.
trips I've ever had in terms of the location because we went to San Sebastian. Everything was perfect apart from the game for Bilbao. So that's a fair point. And again, just briefly, just want to hear about your journey from being a United fan as a kid to kind of get into the position you are now, and tell us a bit about the different roles that you do.
Yeah, so I'll keep it as brief as I can. Basically, I studied journalism at university, and then when I finished uni, I came back to living at home. And at that time, there was a local channel in Manchester which doesn't exist anymore, which was called Channel M, which basically covered.
I remember.
Yeah, just covered everything in the city. Across music, sport, news, the lot. And I just started doing work experience there. The channel wasn't exactly thriving for numerous reasons, so the opportunities were there, and I just kept saying yes. And then eventually, I sort of worked my way up to being like their sport anchor, if you like.
Right.
And then I started working for the Premier League, which was 16 years ago now.
Wow.
And I still work for them now. I still do the international content service work. So throughout the week, do interviews with players, press conferences.
That. Yeah, we see your face sometimes behind the managers. We see your face behind the managers of other.
Yeah, I don't just
games.
do United. I do. My patch is basically the north. So City regularly, Liverpool, Everton, even
you would have
Wolves,
enjoyed
Aston
last
Villa.
Sunday then when Richarlison scored.
Yeah, I did do that game. Yeah, Liverpool Spurs. Yeah, there's been a few games this season where there's been a sting in the tail at Anfield for Liverpool, which I covered. A lot of the games last season as well, which was obviously a very different experience for them. So you just wear a different hat. I can't go to work as a fan anymore. I work for the Premier League when I do the games. You have to be as neutral an observer as you can, and try and just like, I think I spoke to you about this after the live show that you guys came to as well, where if City win or Liverpool win, it's a job, it's a story. You can't carry the little lad. 10-year-old Ian won't be very happy, but 39-year-old Ian has to accept that that's his job. So
mature and experienced, Ian. I like it.
Something like that. Yeah. Don't use those adjectives, or it makes me sound old.
Cool and trendy.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
So 16 years. Wow, you started with the Premier League, so that's your first kind of intro into that.
Yeah,
to that
2010-11. 2010-11. So I've covered Manchester United winning the Premier League. So there you go.
Yeah,
I've been doing it a while.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And then obviously now you've got the Premier League role and then the podcast role. Anything outside of that? I know you probably have bits and bobs, but is that the main?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do different things at different points, but my two regular things are the Premier League reporting role now and the podcast, like we've said. So
cool.
So yeah, they keep me busy enough. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I was going to say
6 to 8 weeks, most weeks during the season. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into Manchester United then. So Friday night, 2-2 draw down at Bournemouth. So I guess a couple of standout probably headlines from that game. One is around the inconsistency on the penalties, and two, probably just Bruno keeps delivering. So yeah, I want to get your take first of all. What did you make of the inconsistency on the penalty shouts, specifically the Ahmad one and the Harry Maguire one that we conceded? Like, did they look similar to you?
Yeah, I guess the team and Michael Carrick summed it up really, where they said in their belief that either neither are given or both are given. And I think in the Ahmad case, it probably would have been less of a conversation if then the Ahmad incident hadn't then been followed by Maguire and Evan Nielsen as well. I think if it had just been Ahmad alone, maybe you would accept the decision a bit more than having seen what Carrick and Bruno Fernandes were saying after the game, an almost identical incident where Maguire is then sent off for fouling Evan Nielsen. I mean, just to sort of move the conversation on from the decisions, the most pleasing thing for me was it didn't lose United the game. So fans are getting angry about these decisions, and I feel like not even that long ago we'd be getting angry about them because it has cost United the game. And all right, it cost them the win.
Yeah.
Then again, in the context of the weekend with Liverpool and Chelsea losing, it's not as bad a result as maybe as it might have been.
Yeah.
And Bournemouth have had a very consistent run of form. They've not lost since the start of January. There's a reason for that. So I think the way they reacted, the first setback, which was conceding the first equaliser, then going up the other end and getting the own goal. Yeah. And even when the red card came for Maguire and the penalty was given, it's not like they were arguing about it 10, 15 minutes later. It's not like they imploded. It's not like the game fell apart. Yeah. They had the resilience to see out the final 10 minutes of the game and then the 10 minutes that were added on as well, which Michael Carrick also had a wry smile about after the match, didn't he? It's the longest injury time they've had for ages. So I think, I can understand why people were annoyed. I mean, I've seen the story that the club are looking into appealing or at least making a complaint, I think is probably the right way to put it, to the PGMO. Critch has written about that on The Athletic, so we'll see what the impact of that is in the days ahead and the matches ahead. But the most pleasing aspect for me was being angry about a draw, not angry about a defeat or the world falling in, basically.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And Ash, I guess it's similar for you in terms of, as a fan, it's the inconsistency that gets you sometimes, right? But I think Ian makes a very good point that the fact that we're annoyed about a draw at Bournemouth. I mean, I think the last 2 times at Old Trafford have Bournemouth beat us 3-0. They've definitely beat us 3-0.
Oh, you've forgotten the 4-0. How can you forget the
4-0? 4-4.
The 4-4 this season, but I think the previous 2 seasons, I'm pretty sure they beat us 3-0 twice at Old Trafford. I remember one of them was in December. I think Ten Hag.
Both in December.
Oh, both in December, right? Because I think the first one is when I thought Ten Hag, I don't know if this is going to work out. But to the wider point, Bournemouth are a decent team, Ash, right? So the penalty inconsistency and the general performance of the team, how are you seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly on the penalties, I think the biggest frustration for me was VAR's lack of getting involved in it. But it's clear with Ahmad's penalty incident that the referee was influenced by the fact he's already given a penalty to us, because I think if he doesn't give the Cunha one, he's giving the Ahmad one.
Ash, what do you think about Ahmad in terms of the way he goes down? Because I think sometimes he's a little bit theatrical, and I don't know if that kind of works against him.
I was going to say he was a little bit theatrical for me. Interestingly, on your pod, Carl was surprised Cunha's one was given on first glimpse, right? Because for me that seemed like a stone wall, and I'm actually not the type of fan to be like penalty going crazy. So that, it is interesting when you speak to different people of how you look at it. Regarding the Maguire one, being a centre back myself, I think the biggest shock for me was the red card itself, because I don't know if it's the proximity of the Bournemouth stadium, but it just looked like Evan Nielsen, Le Mans was coming out, so he was going to have a shot pretty quickly, and you had Shaw coming as well. So I think that was actually more of a surprise in terms of like, fine, penalty, just. But again, I think Evan Nilsson's actually gone down, not theatrically, but easily. So I think that's clever from him on that point. But yeah, just in terms of United, like, you know, I think Ian's bang on. Like, even if you go back to January, we were nervous about results, and what Michael Carrick has done is just like calmed the ship, and we're getting structured performances. So I know there's a lot of talk, obviously, about, I think it's 2 wins in 8 away from home, but I see the platform, and I didn't see that under Ruben, as you know, Steve. Like Ian, just for like declaration, I think it was like February 25, Steve asked me the question, if you could change Ruben Amorim at that point, would you do it? And I said yes, because for me, I just, you know, I wanted him to be successful, obviously. You know, he's the same age as us, and, you know, he's a cool guy, he's charismatic, and all the rest of it. But
just like you two as well.
Obviously. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the football and obviously the results, for me, they were disastrous and obviously record breaking in terms of, if you look at Premier League era or even Manchester United modern era, right? So, you know, from there to go to where we are today, like we're sitting third, we're closer to City than the mob chasing us behind. That's remarkable. Okay, people can pick holes in the football, but you got to remember, in January, most fans, including myself, were probably thinking we need like 8, 9 players in the summer. Now, because the calm has come, I actually disagree with us in the 3-4-3. I think 4-3-2-1 does work for us. But now, all of a sudden, the transfer window, it's like we probably only need like 3, 4 bodies to, you know, be like really competitive, because for me, Arsenal aren't like Manchester City or Liverpool's like Jurgen Klopp team. Like, they're gettable in the next like couple of years. So with smart signings, you know, there's a platform for me. The bigger question obviously will be like, is Michael Carrick going to be in charge of that? But he's well on course, obviously, now to get Champions League, which for me is remarkable, because I'm happy to say that if Ruben was in charge, I don't think Champions League is happening. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I want to pick up on the point about, you know, Carrick getting Champions League and what happens from there. Like, you know, me, again, for your context, Ian, like post Bilbao, we did a pod basically in Bilbao. Ash obviously was of the same belief. Now that he's lost the final, he definitely has to go. Me and us were kind of like, not happy. I don't see it working long term, but the manager market at that time didn't really inspire us. And we were thinking, if you wait a year, you've got the managers coming out of the World Cup. So you've got Tuchel, Ancelotti, Poch, even Nagelsmann. So we were like, okay, we would prefer to wait a year and then possibly get one of those managers, give Ruben more time, give him a summer window, etc. But yeah, you know, in the early part of the season, the football, I think as Manchester United supporters, when the football isn't entertaining, it's a real struggle, isn't it? You know, we can deal with bad results, but when you're not enjoying the football, you know, it's a real struggle, I think, especially for Manchester United supporters. So, yeah, we are where we are. Carrick obviously come in, done brilliantly. So, Ian, I want to come to you here. So I remember when Carrick got the job, I was listening to your pods. I think in that early part, all of you were very much like, let's see how it goes. There's no rush, right, to make a decision. Mm-hmm. We don't have to give it to him perm. There's no point. Do you think Tuchel re-signing, and talk is Ancelotti is re-signing or close, do you think that's changed the way the club need to look at it at all, or do you think it's still a case they can wait until the summer?
No. I think they keep doing what they're doing. You know, Michael Carrick, week on week, we are learning more and more about the manager that he is, or the head coach that he is, the job that he's doing or can do at United, you know, this season and beyond. I thought it was very interesting to watch the reaction to him losing the first game against Newcastle, and to see exactly what happened in the wake of that. I liked some of the tetchiness that he's shown after that Newcastle game and after Bournemouth as well, because, I mean, I watched the press conference, which I wasn't in, but I watched the press conference ahead of the Bournemouth game, and a lot of the journalists were trying to like get into him, like, how do you deal with the players? Do you tell them off? Do you get angry? How does it go? So, you know, beginning to see those different assets that he's got. There's different facets to his personality. Yeah, he's got different ways to go about things. Hugely experienced as a player. And I think it's fine. I think it's fine to just wait and see. And in the meantime, I know, and I'm sure the club will continue to do the work that they're doing behind the scenes to see who's interested, to see what's out there, and to take a properly considered view about it. And I said this on a podcast last week that I did with Steve Bartram, who used to work for the club and does a show on YouTube now. I don't buy the idea that because it worked out a certain way with someone in the past that you can't then do that this time for that reason. And, you know, so many people I've heard say, well, look how it worked out with Solskjaer. You can't do the same with Michael Carrick. Well, two things on that. Just because you appointed one person in this circumstance doesn't mean that the second person is going to go exactly the same way. If you were appointing a top-level manager, would you say, well, we've had that before with Jose Mourinho, one of the biggest names in management, and that didn't work out? And then the other part of it is, well, did Jose Mourinho not work out, considering the success that he had with United, the trophies that he won? He got them into the Champions League consistently. Did Solskjaer not work out? All right, he didn't win anything, but he came very close in the Europa League. He came second in the Premier League, which is the highest post-Ferguson finish.
Yeah.
It felt like they were really onto something at the start of that season when it just dramatically fell apart in the 2021-22 season. They were unbeaten away from home in a year, you know. All right, it was lockdown football, but no one else was doing that at that stage. So, you know, there was definitely merits to it. I know speaking to supporters, they felt brilliant watching Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United. I don't know what you guys think, but, you know, people really enjoyed it. So to just write off Carrick because of how it worked out with someone, when actually that someone actually did an half-decent job, I just don't really get that at all.
I think the expectations, I think that was the issue with Ollie, because obviously he's following on from Jose Mourinho. You know, we signed Ronaldo, Sancho. I think there was one more.
Was it Varane?
Varane.
Yeah.
So I think that,
some of that.
Yeah, I think that was like part of the problem, and also like Ollie tried to improve the football even more so, and I actually thought that was to his detriment, because where we played like a mid-block, typically under Ollie, and actually got good results, included against Pep quite consistently at the Etihad. We pushed the lineup in that season, and then we started to get found out more in terms of like, can the players actually do that? But coaching style, is that Ollie's style? Personally, I actually didn't think it was. But funnily enough, if Ollie had come now, I think the Premier League is actually more suited to his kind of coaching style at the moment, because we've kind of gone back to an era of like mid-block, obviously set pieces. Ian, as you can probably know from watching all the Premier League football that you do, it's come back like with a bang this season, right? So like, I think in terms of, you know, Carrick, I actually see patterns that I like, especially with midfield. Like, you know, it's a clear change from what Ruben was doing, in terms of Ruben looked for more control, whereas Carrick is actually trying to play more, you know, interlinked midfield football, like, you know, trying to penetrate. It's almost like Manchester United from like, you know, 20 years ago in terms of the style. So as fans would appreciate that. But yeah, obviously it kind of depends on like the market outside, right? Who's available. And that market is actually quite small now, Steve, right? Because your World Cup managers that you were planning a year ago, they're pretty much all gone.
This is the interesting thing, and this is why I kind of want to ask you, like, Ian, from your perspective. So let's assume that the club have decided they're waiting until the summer. They did say that, I think, whether it was officially or, you know, they communicated that type of narrative that we'll wait until the summer. But let's just say, hypothetically, let's just say Carlo Ancelotti, right? Jason Wilcox or whoever, they've got a board, right, or a whiteboard or a short list of their number one, and obviously there'll be certain circumstances for all of them on whether you can get them or not. But let's just say we think Carlo Ancelotti is the right man in terms of stature, experience to take the club forward. If that was your position, would the club not have needed to have been working on those targets from, say, you know, February, March? Because this is how it works in football, right? Even with transfers, like, you need to start speaking to their teams, etc., get a feel. So do you know what I mean? Like,
how do you know they're not?
Well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah.
Well, one point we said, Ian, was maybe the likes of Carlo and Tuchel aren't on the list for you know, the reasons that, you know, we've discussed, right? World Cup. I mean, the only candidate for me. Sorry.
I think if you're waiting for managers to finish the World Cup, you might be waiting a while, might you? You might not actually have a manager through the door if they get to the final or the latter stages until literally, you're beginning pre-season. And I think already waiting until the end of the season can cause some problems with player recruitment because, like we've spoken about so many times on the show, a big part of joining Manchester United or any club, people will ask who's the manager, what style of football we're going to play. And, I don't suppose they can give a definitive answer to that if they haven't decided for definite who the manager will be next season. Now, the fortunate thing for United is there is some uncertainty across the board anyway. Real Madrid, for example, they've got a manager in a similar circumstance to Michael Carrick. There's some uncertainty at Liverpool. There's even been a lot of speculation about whether this is Pep Guardiola's final year at City. So quite a lot of the rivals have got a bit of a question mark over them as well. But yeah, I mean, I know they've done it with Louis van Gaal in the past when he first came in. But I've been told that the club have been working on who is next even before Ruben Amorim left because they wanted to be prepared and have a knowledge of the market. Andy on our show speaks to some very influential people on a regular basis, and he's heard similar that there's been preparations and conversations taking place that we don't know about in terms of making this decision. And to me, that's reassuring. That's what the club should be doing. They should be weighing up their options. But also, look what's in front of you. You know, if Michael Carrick is doing a great job with the team, just because he's the interim doesn't mean that he shouldn't be considered. And everything I've heard or been told is that he is part of the consideration and the conversation. So, the one thing that hasn't really happened is Michael sit there in a press conference or an interview and say, "I want this job."
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And knowing his character a bit, I think it's unlikely. That
maybe
if
and when we secure top 5, maybe he might drop a little hint in, a bit more.
I don't think it's his style, to be honest. I mean, I remember I interviewed him a lot as a player. Like I'd mentioned before, been doing the job a while. So when United had a disaster under David Moyes or Van Gaal, quite often it was Michael Carrick who would be the one who would come out and deal with all the interviews and all the questions about what was going wrong and why United lost and whatever else. And there was a bit of a running joke. No. There's a bit of a running joke that he wasn't allowed to do interviews if United won.
Right.
I think when he eventually retired and he came and did the interviews after the game, I think I'm right in saying United won the game, and it was like, oh, why am I doing the interviews there? Because we've not lost.
Yeah.
So he's a safe pair of hands from a PR perspective for them. They can trust him, I think. Yeah. And already he's had to deal with some pretty complicated subject matters.
Yeah.
I mean, as a Manchester United manager, you have to. He's the voice of the club, whether he's a temporary manager or not. That is a huge part of the role. And we were talking the other week on the show about, will there come a point where he has to show more? Well, actually, you're beginning to see that. His comments about the officials at Bournemouth, his comments about some of the questions he was being asked after Newcastle, you are beginning to see that a little bit more. But it's just not his style. He's a straight batter. He's a safe pair of hands. Whatever cliche you want to use, he's calm, he's measured.
Yeah.
He's not emotional outwardly. So it's funny how United seem to appoint the antidote to the previous boss, don't they?
Yeah.
In so many ways.
Yeah.
There's a real yin and yang to the way that the appointments go. So let's see.
Yeah.
I don't think when they say let's decide in the summer that they are giving it zero thought and zero consideration. I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of work being done behind the scenes to know when the time's right, that they're making the right call, and let's hope they get it right.
I think there's a misconception about Carrick as well, because we've got a community group here, and there's a lot of like Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal fans. They all think he's boring, etc. But you actually talk to his teammates. Wayne Rooney, I saw recently when he was asked who's the funniest teammate he's ever had, he said Michael Carrick. So
it's just dry, really dry.
It's dry humour, and then also on press conferences in terms of the job, he has quite consistently said he's loving the job. So for me, that's good enough, right? Because like you said, Ian, I've listened to Carrick interviews for like so many years. So that's his way of basically saying, I want the job. Most likely anyway, right? So
maybe.
So he's said that, and then I'm with you. Like after the Newcastle defeat, like it was annoying to obviously lose in those circumstances. But do you know what? I actually liked the way he bit back at the presenter about like, I think he was asked a question and was like, "Don't worry." It was
character, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was like, "Don't worry."
I think.
Yeah, and he's not like that. Even as a player, like like you said, he's done interviews after bad defeats, etc. The way he shut it down, it was like he's in charge, and I think the players also like that element as well, right? There's a good balance in terms of like respect, and then if Carrick needs to obviously do stuff, whether it's big calls like Šeško continuously being on the bench, he's making calls like that, even with like fan pressure, media pressure. So I think he's doing a good job. And to your point, it's like we'll just have to see, right, what the management team are doing behind the scenes. Like I think the only manager for me, and I think Andy's mentioned this point before on your podcast, is if Luis Enrique was available, he's probably the only one right now for me personally that I would have to think seriously hard. But if, for example, we're considering other Premier League managers, whereas with Ruben, I would have swapped, an Eddie Howe or whoever. For Michael Carrick, it's like I wouldn't swap any other Premier League, within that mid-tier bracket, like the Silvers of this world. Like Carrick, for me, he's doing the job where it's like if an Enrique's not available, then that's what I'd be looking to do. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting few months ahead with that.
This podcast is sponsored by Go Play Sports, the brand new mobile app changing the game for grassroots. Whether it's Sunday League or five-a-side, Go Play Sports makes it easy to track attendance, manage teams and cut out the manual admin. No more endless group chats, no more chasing payments, just turn up and play. Go Play Sports. Download now from your app store.
Ian, where would this club be without Bruno Fernandes?
Unbelievable, isn't he? Absolutely incredible. I wrote a column on The Athletic, the Talk the Devils column, a couple of weeks ago, making the argument that I think he should be the player of the year in England. Whether it's the PFA players vote or whether it's a FWA journalist vote, I think he has been more important to his team than any other player in the league this year. And the stats are silly. There was after that, actually, I think he went and did he do 2 assists in the following game just to back up the point of how dominant he's been in terms of creative force?
Yeah, Villa.
So double the assists of any other player in the league, double the chances of any other player in the league. He's over 100 chances now in the Premier League this season. And the chasing pack were on about 56 and 58 the last time I checked, which was Declan Rice and Dominic Szoboszlai, who individually are having good seasons, by their standards and the league standards. Declan Rice is probably the biggest vote that I've seen mentioned. But then there's this sort of discussion, and I was really intrigued to have a look back, that you have to win the league to win Player of the Year. And actually, when you look at the PFA vote, in a modern sense, yes, I think 4 of the last 5 winners from memory had been title winners in the year that they won the PFA Footballer of the Year. But then right at the start of the Premier League era, it was the opposite. And actually across the Premier League era, give or take a couple of years, it was about 50-50 between players who were title winners and players who weren't. And the great example that always gets brought up when this conversation, or even anything like it, gets brought up is the treble-winning season, where Manchester United players completely split the vote, and it was a League Cup winner, Tottenham's David Ginola, who ended up winning the overall prize. And even if I say to you the Robin Van Persie year, I don't even need to give you the numbers involved. You know the year. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he finished 3rd.
Did he? Yeah.
Wow. In the PFA vote.
Yeah.
And to me, he was the single most important footballer that season in terms of winning
Won the title,
the ultimate prize.
Yeah.
And yet he finished 3rd. Gareth Bale won it and Luis Suarez came 2nd.
Right.
So, Suarez?
Yeah, Suarez came 2nd. And I think the following year, he won the overall prize.
Okay.
So again, just going back to this season and the way that he's played the majority of the season in an alien position for the rest of his career. He obviously was committed to it. He was on board with the idea. His creative numbers were still intact no matter what. He has adapted to the league by being a crucial part of Manchester United's set-piece threat as well, and a good portion of his assists have come from taking corners and free kicks, so he's in vogue with the league's trend as well. But what he's been an antidote to the fact that a lot of the Premier League this season has felt like, very athletic, very combative, not cancelling each other out, but a focus really on others' weaknesses and limiting that. And he has been, a maverick within all that, who has thrived despite the change in the Premier League. And if you look across the league, people like Martin Ødegaard, not as important for Arsenal this year as previous years, despite how well they've done. Phil Foden, the same. Ryan Cherky, I think he's second for assists, but he's not been playing consistently for City across the campaign. Cole Palmer, not been as good as previous years. Florian Wirtz, not been an automatic settle at Liverpool, not had the same impact on English football as he had on German football so far. So I think sort of Bruno being a shining light, that he can still be a maverick, can still be him in all of this. And also his work rate is ridiculous. The aspects of his game, I think he's matured. I think he has more measure to his performances now. He's always been a great leader. The stuff that you hear about him around the club off the pitch has always been great. Yeah. That's remained. Even last year, when there was so much chat about his future and everything else, I was told he was the one who stepped forward to help and Bumo and Cunha settle. He ran through places to live with Matheus Cunha. He ran through houses to live in. He was like a little estate agent for him almost, just making sure he was happy, because at the time, Cunha's wife was heavily pregnant as well. Right. So it was a really sort of up against the clock type thing that they just wanted to be sorted and settled straight away. And Bruno took it upon himself to help in that regard. And he just is United's best player. He's the best signing of the post-Ferguson era. Yeah. I'd love him to get the assist overall record. Now he's got the United one. Yeah. Just to sort of underline the player that he is, because he might end his Premier League career without a title. He might not win the Premier League title with Manchester United. So at least if he had that, there is something in a record book that will ensure that Bruno Fernandes is remembered, because in my opinion, he deserves to be.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And Ash, like, you mentioned our community before, and we've got some Chelsea, Arsenal fans in there. And I think it actually came up last week from an Arsenal fan saying about, I've seen a lot of narrative online about Bruno getting the player of the season, and, basically saying that can't happen. So from a Declan Rice perspective, Ash, I know you would pick Bruno just to wind up Gooners, but I'm assuming you would back that argument as well from a logical perspective.
Well, not just to wind up Gooners, but he is the most entertaining player to watch in the Premier League this season in particular. Ian mentioned the word maverick. The other maverick players aren't in form. And if you look at Arsenal as an example, because they're top of the table, for me, I obviously don't watch them week in, week out, but obviously Declan Rice has been really good. But first half, he was really good. He's kind of like dropped off second half. Gabriel has been obviously the best centre-back, but he's had some injuries. And then David Raya. So it's kind of like, all of the attackers on their side, none of them have done enough to be even in the conversation. So, like, even just from that perspective, like, the other competition outside of the other Maverick players, he's by far the most entertaining player to watch. Like, he creates, like, such good chances, for our players. And arguably, he should have more, right? There's always going to be that argument. Like, if we had, top class finishes, like, he'd be even better on the stats. But the stats are ridiculous. I think I read one, Ian. I think since January the 7th, i.e. since Carrick, his chance creation alone is second. So, you got Ruben.
Really?
Yeah. So you got Ruben chance creation numbers as top, and then his spell since Carrick's been in is second. Then it's like, the next player in the league. So,
but I guess the argument though is that they're different players completely. Obviously, Bruno's more creative. Declan is more of a more defensive. I know he's chipped in with more goals and stuff over the last few years, but I think the cup final is obviously quite a big moment in the season.
I think that's it. It's narrative, right? Like, if Declan Rice had the game of his life and bossed it, because that's one criticism there is of Declan Rice. And just to be clear, I wanted to sign Declan Rice the summer that he went to Arsenal, so I'm a big fan. But he's still not had his Roy Keane Cup final game, or like his, like a massive game in the Premier League. Yep, everyone's going to tell me the Real Madrid game, but that's Europe. I'm talking can you go and take a game by the scruff of the neck and, win a big game, which is going to take you to the title? We're still yet to see that, for me personally, from Declan Rice. Like, yes, he will have good 7, 8 out of 10s, but need that Steven Gerrard or Roy Keane type performance, right? When you're talking about PFA.
A lot of people were expecting that performance in the cup final. So just very briefly, and I just want to get your take. How do you think that cup final and City winning it can influence the rest of the season in terms of the title race?
I'm not sure that it will have that much of an impact, to be honest. I mean, I've covered a lot of City games throughout this season, and I don't think it's controversial to say that they are not at the level that they've been in the past. I think it's been interesting to watch Guardiola try and work it out, because he comes up with ideas that you wouldn't expect, and he sort of pushes against sort of the common narrative at times as well. So he was having an experiment when Haaland was injured of playing Marmoush and Semenyo as split centre forwards, and it seemed to rejuvenate City a little bit. Gueye has been a big buy for them as well in terms of settling things down at the back. Nico O'Reilly obviously is a clear person to talk about, considering he got the 2 goals in the cup final. But even before that, he is someone who has really progressed this season. A local lad. I always like to see local lads making it in their own teams, no matter who that is, really. And he grew up a City fan and has made his way all the way through their academy to the first team, and he's now winning football games that have got Declan Rice, Gabriel, Erling Haaland, etc. on the field. Not that I'm coming on a United fans podcast to celebrate a Manchester City player, but if that's Kobbie Mainoo, we're absolutely losing our minds, aren't we?
Exactly.
Mainoo and Garnacho scoring in the final against Manchester City was the ultimate, really,
Dream.
wasn't it? To watch those lads do that as young boys, as teenagers, absolutely fantastic. So, I think in terms of the broader conversation, Declan Rice is probably the front runner at the moment in terms of assessing the way that people have been talking. Gabriel undoubtedly is number 2 for Arsenal. At City, if Haaland had continued his early season form, he'd have been probably a strong favourite. He's dropped off, so I wonder if he's gone down the queue now. And I think Antoine Semenyo, to be honest, I think he's sort of picked up where he left off at City from Bournemouth, and he's had a great impact for them. So I just think these lads are going to get rewards. Declan Rice will win his title, or City will win, their League Cup or whatever it is. Bruno needs to get his reward. He's not going to win any silverware from a team perspective, so give him that one instead. But maybe I'm a little bit biased on that. I just think he's so important to United, and if United can finish third, if you can get him in the Champions League, if you can get that assist record, he's putting forward a pretty compelling argument, even against title winners.
Yeah. Fair play. Yeah, we'll sign off on that. We agree.
So we need a trophy.
I was losing you a bit on O'Reilly. I had to bring it back again.
Final point or section, Ian. We'll cover it briefly. I know we could do a whole pod on this, but just wanted to touch on ownership. So obviously such a hot topic over many decades now. Obviously the Glazers coming in 2005, fans weren't happy, and that went on for best part of 20 years, right? Until Ineos came in with the minority investment, I think December 23, I want to say. So what's your kind of latest view on how that's shaping up? Because obviously the 1958 and, other fan groups, the sentiment this season, especially when the Ruben appointment, went wrong, following Ten Hag and Dan Ashworth. There's obviously wider things at the club, like the new stadium, recruitment. So there's a lot to cover, I know. But what's your take on how this is shaping up kind of heading into the summer? Do you think, the noise will almost be squashed and they'll just carry on executing? Or do you see possibly any changes? I'm not saying takeover, but even with the fans getting moved from the South Stand and ticket prices increasing recently, it seems like it's at a bit of a standoff. But because of the results have been good, the last couple of months has almost quietened that narrative down a little bit. So, what's your latest take on that?
Yeah, I think it has ebbed and flowed, the level of anger and frustration that there's been with results down the years across the seasons for United. I think fans' positions on the Glazer family are very clear and have been for a long time. And I was inside Old Trafford the day that the Liverpool game got called off when the fans came inside the stadium. I was one of the few journalists who'd actually turned up early enough to be inside it. So, having covered that, and I know that was maybe more about the Super League really, as opposed to just the Glazer ownership, but their part in that was obviously a huge source of frustration for United fans. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I think that is well entrenched. I think the interesting thing to observe as being the opinion of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos and the work that they're doing. And we're now seeing in relation to the podcast, quite a lot of pretty angry people about the way that Ineos have run things. And equally, there's other people who have the complete opposite view that things are much better now than they were, before. And, there was obviously that sort of crossroads of the Qatari interest there was when Ineos managed to do their investment in Manchester United. And, the point remains that they only own a minority of the club. The Glazer family still own the vast majority of it. And so Jim Ratcliffe has got the keys to the place, really, in terms of the decision-making and so on. You've then got the different people who are involved at that top layer who have now got scrutiny on them, like Omar Barada, like Jason Wilcox, and so on. And again, they will be judged on the same sort of things. What's the recruitment like? The manager, the head coach situation is going to be a huge thing to keep an eye on. How does the stadium progress, or how doesn't it progress with how things have gone? So, it feels like we're in a moment again where there is, people getting very frustrated about things again. And I think always now it gets just added on because of what the past feeling has been for fans as well. Winning football matches masks a lot. It won't mask everything, clearly. But, there has been, even this season, the 1958 group ended up calling off a protest at one point because they just didn't feel that the time was right. But, that it's not going to go away. And I think until Manchester United aren't owned by the Glazer family, there will be sections of the fan base. There will be people who feel very strongly that shouldn't be the case. There's still people, clearly who feel that it should never have become a thing in the first place, and it has done over the last couple of decades. And until that changes, I don't think anyone is going to be universally happy. Even if Manchester United are stood with a Premier League title on the pitch again, I think there'll still be frustrations about it all. So it's part of the landscape now, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly, until something happens. So, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much, Ian, for your time. Really appreciate it. Keep up the great work.
Thanks for having me on. And thank you for the support as well. The things that you said at the top, the fact that you're so well invested in the podcast, it means a lot to us all. So, I genuinely really appreciate it. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us on this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.